All right, so today we're going to be diving into data exploration, the first video here, and we're going to be looking at missing values, and we're going to be looking at unique values within those columns here. So let's jump over here. If you haven't done so already, we'll get to the GitHub. This data is going to change probably throughout the data series as I'm going to be creating this data as we build out the projects. I'm going to create different types of data and structures and design and dynamics because the real data in the real world is not available for us to use for free, so I can't just go and download real data from somewhere that I need. And I want to show you guys very specific examples, so I'm gonna have to architect and create this data as we go to showcase some things that happen in the real world. So if you go to the GitHub and you download this credit data here, so let's start by importing pandas if you haven't done so. And then we're just gonna import this data, and I'm just gonna call it data. We will go and copy and paste the text location. If you're in Windows, the slashes are going to be the wrong way. Easiest way to do this, just type in R and then put the single quote, copy and paste where this data is going to be located, and then add the name of it here and .csv. Let's run that. You can see it's up here in the top right corner. Let's quickly look at the data. It is a good practice to look at your data and understand it here. I'm going to show you guys what a lot of programmers do, which I don't like, and I'll show you why. So we're going to print out the data. We're going to print out the head, and let's do 25 of those top columns. That's what head is. So let's print those out. And as you can see here, what ends up happening is it prints it out, and it looks kind of okay, but it only does the first few columns, and then it has this ... which is there's a lot more data in the middle. In actual practice, in actual applications here, you might have 10, 20, 30 variables. Most applications I've modeled has thousands of variables, and so when we do thousands of variables, this doesn't tell me anything. I can't see if there are any sorts of issues with the data itself. So the head function sucks. I'm just going to type that in there. What we're going to do instead is we're just going to manually open this data inside Spider, and I know when you have really, really large data sets in practice, what you would end up doing is actually shortening it. So you just pull the top 25 heads into a new data frame. And a way to do that is you could say like data small is equal to data head 25 like we did here. And that's actually just going to create a smaller data set. So that's what I would do in practice maybe, but to be honest with you guys, I'd probably do like 1,000 rows. This is a small data set with only 500 observations, so we're not going to have that issue. But in practice, you would actually create a smaller data set so we can open it and look at it. So we're just going to open this manually, and you're going to see it has a little window. I like to make it big. You can tell this is a small data set because we can look at all of it. So the color coding is nice inside of Spider, which is why I like using it. I'm not saying you have to use Spider. You could use, VS Code, or you could use like JetBrains or anything else that you want to use here. We're going to quickly look for missing data or other issues. So sometimes you'll see like columns that are like all numeric, and then there's like some characters in there. Sometimes there are just going to be missing columns, missing pieces here. We're going to pull this up quickly and look at it. And so far it looks fine, right? It has customer number in here. It has some contract dates, some terms, some default dates. Like everything looks fine, but I'm going to tell you, we know that there are going to be some issues because I engineered this data set here. Again, using more rows is helpful. Sometimes just randomly sorting these. But as we scroll through and look at these, you can tell default date all of a sudden has a bunch of not a number. So they're missings. Again, the color coding in Spider shows me that everything is numeric, so that's good. Again, the contract dates are not numeric, which is why they're not color coded. So that's okay. This will tell me if I need to convert columns later. Now, I wouldn't solely depend on this as like knowing if it is going to be numeric or not, but it's a good way to kind of scroll through your data, get a good feel for it, see any potential issues. I can tell you too, like some of these columns look really redundant, which we're going to look at here in a second. But again, imagine you have thousands of columns, so you can't really manually look at every single column. But it is good just to do a visual check to get started here. So let's look at missing values in each column. And often in large data frames, it can be hard to see these, find these, because you might have, like I've had millions and millions of observations, like, I don't know, like 10 million observations, and then I've had like 3,000 variables. So let's get in here and code this out a little bit. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new data frame just called data analysis. I like to save all of my results into tables so I don't have to rerun things. So I do not like to print things because if I want to do a calculation, I want to plot things, which we're going to end up doing some plotting in the future. It's nice to have data frames stored with all this information already pre-designed and architect and like ready to go, versus me like printing out numbers, which are in the output feed somewhere and I have to go find these. This just makes it clean and easy to find. So in my personal preference as someone doing model development, data science, machine learning, I tend to save all of my results into some sort of data frame or table or matrix or something like that. And so we're going to create this called data analysis, and we're going to use our Panda package here, and we're going to use a data frame because I want it saved as a data frame. If you just run this without the data frame piece, it'll create a series, and then I have to create a new empty data frame. I have to pull it in. Just write it all at once at the beginning, and it's clean and easy to use. We don't have to worry about kind of moving things around and writing excess code here. And now that we have this data frame shell that we've written, so create a pandas data frame, we're going to count or sum up. We're going to add up the number of NAs. So, not a number or kind of missings here. And so what we're going to do is just type in our data frame, which is going to be called data. We're going to say is NA, and that's a function. And then we're going to add some function on the end of that. So period, so a dot sum, then use the parentheses here to close that out. And as part of the pandas data frame function itself, we can actually name the columns up front. So when I was junior, I would do these data frames, and always the first column that I'd create of the series from some sort of calculation would just be called 0. And then I'd have to take that series and convert it into a data frame. And then I'd have to take that data frame and have to rename the first column. We're gonna do it all at once. So what we're gonna do here is say columns equals, and then we're just gonna do a square bracket, and we're gonna put the name in here. So I'm gonna have missing CNT for the missing count here. You'll see with a lot of my consistency or maybe inconsistency with variable naming, I often do things with lowercase for data frames, and often for column names, I try to do them as capitalized. It's just personal preference, and it keeps it neat and organized. And then when you're writing code, you can easily reference your issues or problems that you're running into. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna run this real quick. And if we open this up, just so you guys can see it, it's going to have all of our columns on the index here. And again, you could rename the index if you wanted, but I'm going to leave it. It's going to have the missing count. And you can see here that the default date, which we kind of cut earlier from a quick review on the second larger data frame, there's 450 missing. Okay. Now, again, is that a lot? Is that a little? I don't really know, and I don't want to be getting out like a phone or a calculator to do a calculation here. So we're going to get some percentages here and add another column to this table so that we can look at it, our managers can look at it, anyone overviewing it, validation teams, the business can understand this from a few different perspectives, which is another advantage of creating all these tables. So as I said, only default date has missing values. This makes complete sense from a business standpoint here because we're doing credit risk. If you have a bunch of loans and a lot of them have not defaulted, they're not going to have a default date. So it makes sense that you're going to have a large number of essentially missing values in this case here. So start to think through your data logically, business side, why it could be the way it is. Maybe this is a huge issue and you don't understand it. So go talk to the business and figure that out. And kind of bring some of these issues to them, have nice pretty tables for them so they can simply see the output and what you're trying to do here. So as I said, we don't know if 450 observations is a lot for missing. So let's calculate these percentages so we can get a little bit more insight on what we're actually looking at. And to do that, we're going to take our original data analysis data frame here. We're just going to create a new column called miss PCT, so missing percentage here. And then we're going to take that data analysis data frame that we already had. We're going to pull the missing count variable that we did, and we're just going to divide this by the length of the original data. So we're using data here. I'm going to say this because if you look in the top right corner, the original data set has 500 observations. The data analysis one, the summary we have, only has 11 because it's just the columns. It doesn't have all the observations here. So that's a piece where you can kind of get caught up and a little bit confused and make a mistake here. And I'm going to put a comment here to remember it is decimal format. So when you see like 0.9, that's 90%. That's not 0.9% here. I'd have to multiply by 100 to be able to do a decimal or a numeric format here. And so we're going to run this real quick. And we'll look at this, we'll open data analysis. And you can see here, we have 0% for all the other ones, but we have 90% for defaulted data. So that makes complete sense, right? 450, look at our data frame, out of 500, 90% of those is missing. So in our case for loans, this means 90% of those loans are good. They're still alive, active, making some sort of payments or something like that. But 10% of those are going to be actual values, dates they actually defaulted, and those loans are going to be dead here. Understanding the finance isn't important. Understanding just missing percentages is important for this video. Now, one more thing I want to cover in this video quickly is just looking at the number of unique values in a specific variable or a column here. This is important because sometimes you go into do model development and you're going to be running some sort of regression or decision tree or something like that. And if you have a variable and it's like 99% one value and there's 1% that is a different value, so there's only 2 unique values, you need to think through, like, does it even make sense to use that variable? Is there enough information to do some sort of extraction here? If you did a decision tree, it might make sense because that 1% might be some subpopulation that's very unique. Again, we're gonna dig through this logically later, but I want to see which variables have a lot of essentially information value. They have a lot of variance and uniqueness to them. If you have a lot of variables, we'll tend to exclude them if they have like 1 or 2 values. One value, right? If it's just all the same, makes no sense of keeping it in. It's just wasting compute time. It's wasting our energy. We might end up dropping those later. But let's just go through quickly and see how we were going to look at the unique values. There are a variety of ways to do this code-wise. I will show you how I do it. I think it's just a little bit simpler and easier. And I'll note too that sometimes when you have limited information, you end up with high correlations and you end up with really predictive variables, but logically later they don't make sense. So that's why we're kind of doing this process right here. So we're going to take our data analysis, data frame again. We're going to create a new column called unique CNT for count. And we're going to take our original data here again, and we're going to just type in, so number, and then unique. This is a unique number unique function. And we're just going to run this. And we're going to open up our data analysis again. And here you're going to see, you can look at each variable. So we have like customer, there's 486 of these that are unique. So there are duplicates, right? So start thinking through this in a data scientist, quant, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, modeling expert opinion here. You know there are 500 rows. If there's 486 in some of these cases, that means that they are not unique. There are duplicates somewhere, right? We'll think through that later. Again, you have some that have like income, which all 500 are unique. Okay, that's okay. That could be unique, could not be unique. And there are other ones like, you know, accounts opened in the last 12 months. There's only going to be 2 unique values. Some have 68 unique values, like revolving utilization. So this gives us a little bit of understanding, and I want you guys to start thinking about this as a modeler, right? We're not software programmers like following steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, steps 4, you know, all the way through the end of the steps. We need to kind of work through this, write some code, and then look at the results in these tables. Think through if there's any issues, things that need to get corrected, questions we have for the business, and really dive into that here.